Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelly.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to Hancock and Kelly on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Getting hot out there.
On the left is Michael Kelly.
Good morning.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, St. Louis has a new mayor, a new governor who pledged to change St. Louis, but the city is still reeling from the same old issues. A 16-year-old run over and killed on a downtown sidewalk. The top prosecutor in Edwardsville, Illinois, takes aim at an assault weapons ban that targets a rifle he compares to the Ford F-150 pickup. The U.S. Supreme Court issues a ruling that backs up Missouri's ban on transgender medications and procedures for minors. And our quote of the week is from an area congresswoman whose name popped up in the notes of an accused Minnesota killer targeting a list of Democrat lawmakers. Also, Missouri's governor heads to France, and a friend of our show is witness to the tragic history now unfolding between Israel and Iran. But we begin with this. No doubt people have rallied to help St. Louis recover and rebuild after the May 16th tornado, but the issues of violent crime and lawlessness, especially downtown, continue, with a 16-year-old run over and killed on a Washington Avenue sidewalk. A 29-year-old woman was also run over and shot.
There was an argument between two different groups, an exchange of gunfire, and the 29-year-old was shot in the midst of that. They were all there for a rooftop party. That rooftop party was underway. Downstairs at the entryway, there was people, I guess, letting individuals in and out. At that point, there was an argument on whether to allow a group of individuals in. That fight was down on the sidewalk, it spilled out into the streets, and then that is when shots were fired by two groups of people.
Police have arrested and charged one suspect, though several people were reportedly in the suspect vehicle, driving recklessly and firing guns. John and Michael, the list of people getting run over and either killed or critically wounded, including a teen volleyball player who lost her legs a couple of years ago, are nothing new. And the new mayor and the new governor, both of whom campaigned on doing something about this, haven't. Or have they, John? Are they doing enough? Is it soon enough?
They've not done enough for this fellow or the volleyball player or the two people that got run over outside of Ted Drew's. I mean, this is it's an epidemic in St. Louis. And I think part and parcel of this is the fact that we just don't have enough police officers. And certainly don't have enough police officers on the street. And I think that's even more so than the staffing issue, which I think is a real issue and needs to be addressed, and I think will be addressed by the new police board that the governor's going to appoint. But over and above the staffing issues is the number of officers on the street versus the number of officers in the office. And we need to get more officers on the street. We need to incent them, I think, in terms of their compensation if they're putting themselves in harm's way every day. But certainly, if you had a police presence along that stretch of area where people are driving recklessly, you would think that would begin to cut down on some of this nonsense. It's tragedy. It's just an absolute tragedy.
And maybe it's unfair to pin it on a new governor and a new mayor who've only been in office for a few months, but they ran on the issue, and this issue goes back not just a year or two.
Right.
It goes way back.
Right.
And it keeps happening.
Well, you're exactly right. It's a block from my office. I go down there all the time, and unfortunately, downtown St. Louis, at many times of the day and in the evening, are a ghost town. So it's obvious when there are these types of events going on. What's not obvious is the presence of police. This is 4 blocks from the police department. A big party that was spilling out into the streets. There were no police officers there, and I think that's the main problem we need. We need more officers on the ground working these issues. I appreciate the transparency of the police department. They're really doing a great job explaining us what's happening. But the one part that's being missed here is that we need more officers. Finally, I will tell you that there also is the jeopardy of an election passed. I voted for somebody who was going to fix this, and things are going to get better. This is hard work we have ahead of us here in St. Louis to fix the problems we have, and it's going to take all hands on deck.
The real thing here, I mean, you've got the tragic death of a pedestrian, but the real thing here is how many of these reckless driving events happen where there's no victim, but they're just taking place. We've got to start cracking down on those instances, and those violators need to be punished.
In 2023, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed an assault weapons ban into law in the wake of the mass shooting that killed 7 at a 4th of July parade in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park. This past week in Edwardsville, the chief prosecutor in Madison County, Republican State's Attorney Tom Hain, led a group of 35 state's attorneys in filing an amicus brief urging a U.S. appeals court to overturn the law which bans the sale and distribution of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and also requires those with semi-automatic weapons to register their ownership. Hain says, quote, "This patently unconstitutional law purports to ban a type of firearm far more common than the Ford F-150, while accounting for only a tiny portion of violent crime." He's referring to the AR-15 style rifles that are now banned in Illinois. Is it the F-150 of firearms, Michael Kelly?
I don't know. And if it is, then that scares me even more that there's that many of it. What's most jarring to me is these are the people who prosecute crimes, who are going out there and saying, let's have these weapons of war on the streets of our community. Most of these prosecutors are from the rural parts of Illinois, and I think that's really the problem that we're dealing with, guys. We're living in two different worlds. These types of weapons of war being on the ground in Chicago or St. Louis or any other city, it should not be tolerated. And why you need it to defend your house? This is silly, and it just seems like an advocation of these prosecutors' responsibility to be on the side of the gun.
Why isn't this ban a place to start, John, after a 4th of July massacre carried out with a high-capacity rifle, really a weapon of war?
Well, first of all, the AR-15 and the F-150 are nothing alike. You know, your buddy doesn't ask you to help him move if you've got an AR-15. But, you know, gun ownership is a constitutional right in this country. And law-abiding gun owners are not the problem. The people that are using weapons in these mass incidents, in almost every instance, that gun is illegally obtained. And that's where we ought to be focused on law enforcement, on people that have guns illegally, criminals that have guns. And it doesn't matter if it's an AR-15 or a handgun, that's still an assault weapon in the hands of the wrong person. So, I do think there is a constitutional right in this country to keep and bear arms, and that's what Mr. Hain is talking about.
Where is the effort and where is the energy from these rural prosecutors to want to go out there and fight the crime rather than continuing to legalize a weapon of war?
You don't have a lot of crime in rural areas with handguns. It just doesn't happen. There aren't criminals roaming around the streets of the farm country with illegal guns. That's happening in our inner cities in this country, and that's where the crackdown needs to take place.
Well, the Chicago massacre was in a suburb.
It was.
Right. The city of St. Louis has agreed to pay more than $500,000 in a legal settlement with former police chief Joe Moqua, whose former wife was killed when a World's Fair era bridge railing fell onto her car as she drove down the Forest Park Parkway down below nearly 7 years ago.
The bureaucracy of it surprised me the most, because they knew from the time it was built in 1910 that it was an ornamental handrail. The Model A or the Model T were the primary cars on the road, and we still had horses and carriages on the road. So it was never built to withstand an impact.
He says prior to the death of Janet Teresi Moqua, there had been at least 10 incidents through the years where debris was scattered onto the parkway below from that bridge above, which is used by an average of 30,000 cars a day, the parkway, I mean. 7 years later, temporary concrete highway barriers are in place. There have been no further incidents, but neither the railing nor the bridge have been structurally improved. The gap from that chunk of railing that fell is still there, highly visible as you drive below, John.
I have no words. Why hasn't this been addressed? And, there's a host of infrastructure issues in the city of St. Louis, whether it be the sewers, the water system, this thing. And, when something causes a loss of life, you ought to fix it. And you clearly know what the problem is. There's a solution to that problem, and it hasn't been attempted. And why it took 7 years to reach this settlement is a puzzle to me.
Is there any good excuse for not making this an emergency priority?
No.
Right after this happened,
fairness,
we're fixing it next week.
This will be our third mayoral administration that's taking place since it happened. You can walk by it. I walk past that area all the time. Knew Joe Moqua, knew his wife. This is tragic and unbelievable. It points to the larger narrative that unfortunately that we've been talking about here week after week, which is that city government is broken. How can you have an incident like this? How can you have something so glaring that's right there on a daily basis and it doesn't get addressed? But boy, oh boy, we're gonna make sure you can go to the bathroom on the sidewalks and stuff. We need to get our heads on straight in the city.
St. Louis County Executive Sam Page is pushing to use more than $20 million from the Rams NFL settlement on the troubled county animal shelter, which the state of Missouri has refused to grant a license.
In order for us to provide better services that people in our community would like to see, then we need to make an investment in the space and we need to make an investment in the facilities. And I'm asking our council to do that.
I don't want to be throwing money at poor management because that's not going to solve it. What we need to do is to get to the bottom of these management issues.
The shelter has been the source of multiple issues, most recently its largest parvovirus outbreak ever, leading to 19 dogs being euthanized. State inspectors have noted unsanitary conditions and dogs being housed in kennels that were too small. Michael, should the county tap the settlement funds for this?
I sure don't think so. I mean, we've learned what this issue was. This was a leadership problem. We have a veterinarian who didn't go into the clinic. Why? Because they were allergic to dogs. We had a leader that had never been in there before. They had this process where there was nobody being held accountable. And now our answer is to throw $30 million at it. $30 million of precious Rams dollars. Let's start with getting proper leadership and a plan there, and then we can consider whether or not we ought to throw more money at a place.
John?
Well, ever since we got in the high definition televisions, every time Sam Page comes on, my dog goes nuts. And I tell him, I say, Gus, you better behave, or I'm sending you to Sam Page. The problem with this thing, Andy, is that they hired a veterinarian who's had his license suspended twice. And, a Google search would have said, oh, maybe we ought not hire this veterinarian. Let's fix the personnel problems, and let's take care of the dogs and the cats, and let's not spend $20 million doing it.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelly, as crime and mayhem continue to seemingly go unaddressed in his home state, especially in St. Louis, Missouri's Republican governor goes on a business trip to France.
To hear more, listen to the podcast. Just search for Hancock and Kelly.
We ended the day with Eric Lindbergh, the grandson of Charles Lindbergh, celebrating the 98th year that Spirit of St. Louis flew from St. Louis to New York to right here to Paris.
Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe traveled to France on what he calls a trade mission with business meetings with businesses that have already had a presence in Missouri, and he's also promoting Missouri as a place for companies in France to do business. He also celebrated a bit of the history that he just mentioned there that binds France to our city of St. Louis and our state of Missouri. Along with the business meetings, he attended a Catholic Mass at the newly rebuilt Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Michael, imagine if this was former Mayor Tishaura Jones of St. Louis making a trip as deadly lawlessness continues in the city of St. Louis.
Well, and don't forget tornado relief and all that. Here's the reality. When you're the governor or the president, there's never a good time to go anywhere. This is a legitimate business venture. Boeing is over there selling planes. There's a lot of reasons for the governor to be there. I think the bigger problem the governor has is when you're out there with this type of display over there, what's happening at home? Things are continuing to be a problem. He said he was going to fix crime. It's something that's going to be heightened when he comes back.
John, is now the time to be going to France? And what would you say if it was Tishaura Jones? You'd be ripping her, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because she'd be doing it on the taxpayer dime. This is not on the taxpayer dime. Missouri created something called the Hawthorne Foundation years ago. And governors, every governor, Democrat and Republican, has used that foundation to go on these foreign trade missions, and more often than not, they result in agreements. They result in imports to the United States, exports, largely agriculture.
They are important. I mean,
they're very important, and you've got a business contingent of business leaders from across the state that are there. Comparing that with what Tishaura Jones was doing is not right.
Missouri's Republican Attorney General is celebrating a U.S. Supreme Court ruling on transgender medications and procedures for minors. In a 6-3 ruling with conservative justices in the majority, the court upheld Tennessee's ban on puberty blockers and hormone treatments. The ruling, in effect, upholds similar bans in 26 other states, including Missouri. Attorney General Bailey says the court is adopting the position he's been leading from day one. Quote, Children deserve protection, not permanent damage. This is a victory not just for Missouri, but every state fighting to shield children from irreversible harm disguised as medical care. John, the Republican stance seems to be that transgender care is not medicine.
Well, it's not medicine for kids. I mean, you got to have a parent's permission to get your ears pierced in this state. And should we be doling out gender transition care, hormone blockers to kids when they're in their early teens? No. I think the Supreme Court got this right. I think the Missouri law has this right. I think most of the country's laws have this right. And, I've got no problem with this whatsoever.
Is there a point to be made that maybe a person in their teens shouldn't be making this decision?
Well, that's what the
will alter their
lawmakers and
life
the courts
forever?
now have said is going to be the case. And it is what it is. What's unfortunate to me is to see Andrew Bailey and others using this as political football because it inspires anger, etc. These are real conditions that people find themselves in. At the same time, when they're watching the federal government cut funding to suicide hotlines, there are real human beings out there that are dealing with this issue. And the idea to just sit and dance on their taking this away is just sad. And because there's no concern for the human who's going through this.
So you don't like the victory lap?
No, it's insulting.
Of course there's concern for the human. That's precisely why this law is in place. You don't want people at 12 and 13 years old making life-changing, life-altering, lifetime decisions in a circumstance like this. If Bruce Jenner wants to change genders when he's an adult, then great.
Then give the support for these young people, if you're not going to give them that option, to make sure that we're not cutting all these important things like suicide hotlines. That's what's happening.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelly, a friend of this show goes to Israel during historic times. I caught up with him when he just got out. He was in Amman, Jordan. He saw the missiles flying. You'll hear from him next.
It was harrowing because, missiles flying overhead, these aren't guided missiles that Iran is using. These are basically bottle rockets that they're just shooting towards Israel and hoping that they hit something. And we could really see the remaking of the Middle East. We could see the remaking of Iran.
As the Israel-Iran conflict changes by the hour, a friend of ours was there in the middle of it on what he calls the trip of a lifetime in Jerusalem. Conservative St. Louis radio host Chris Arps has filled in for John here on Hancock and Kelly. I spoke to him when he was in Amman, Jordan, just after he made it out of Israel. He was traveling with a group called Heroes to Heroes to see the holy sites with veterans suffering from PTSD. John, when he made it back to the U.S., Philadelphia first, en route to St. Louis, he kissed the ground.
Yeah, grateful that Chris got out of there. Chris is a great guy, and he did a great job on this program. I'm glad he got that experience, but I'm glad he's safe. And I'll tell you, what's happening in the Middle East right now, if that doesn't concern you, you're not paying enough attention.
Is it the remaking of the Iran future?
Maybe the remaking of the entire Middle East and the entire world, for that matter. I'm grateful Chris is back. We political people like to be in the middle of everything. I wouldn't want to be in the middle of that.
Now to our quote of the week. The manhunt for Vance Belter came to an end in Minnesota after he allegedly murdered former Minnesota Speaker of the House Melissa Hortman, a Democrat, and her husband. Belter also allegedly shot a state Democrat senator and his wife. Investigators have revealed Belter had a long list of lawmakers he was potentially going to target, all of them Democrats. That list includes Kansas City Congressman Emanuel Cleaver and Belleville, Illinois Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski. Our quote is from her. She says, "As I've said before, there's absolutely no place in this country for political violence. We must be a nation that values civility and mutual respect always." That said, do they practice what they preach, Michael?
I'm not sure. We're in a really dangerous spot. And the fact that this story is going to go off into the distance and we'll live through another one and it's just going to be ho-hum, just like school shootings. It's scary.
Budzinski had Democrat lightning rod Jasmine Crockett of Texas, who was originally from St. Louis, campaigning with her. And those were not civil terms all the time when she was here.
Well, I mean, the whole political rhetoric in this country is off the rails. And the people that do what Michael and I do have a responsibility to ensure that our rhetoric is not inspiring these kind of whack jobs to go out and start killing people. That's not what politics should be.
But it does go back. It's not new, right? I mean, Reagan got shot in 1980, so it's Kennedy long before that.
Uniquely American.
Final thoughts are next. First, drone fox over the JB Bridge from South County into Columbia, Illinois. A glorious view. Final thoughts, Michael?
Well, this past week, my best friend in the world, John Hancock, threw a surprise 50th birthday party for me. My entire family was there, all of my friends, my coworkers, even my good friend Andy Banker was there as well. Everybody came out and gave me the most special night of my life, and it was provided by the person that I sit and fight professionally with in work and on this television show. I will never be able to thank you enough, John Hancock. It was the best night of my life.
Great night, John.
Happy birthday, buddy. I wouldn't have thought 23 years ago when the 27-year-old punk Michael Kelly crashed my news conference. I would have never thought back in 2002 that someday he would be getting an AARP card. But it's in the mail, and you'll be joining the club, Michael, the 50-year-old club, and we're grateful, and it was a great night to celebrate your 50th birthday.
Can't believe he's only 50. We'll see you next week.